Okay, so we'll look at Conan Exiles at 21:9. This is going to be a long one, so strap in, because whilst people are complaining about this game, I want to explain why Conan Exiles to me is great and doesn't deserve the hate it's receiving on Steam reviews. This is one game I promise you, give it a chance and you'll be extremely pleasantly surprised. Also, I'm starting a new series called Hour Of with Conan Exiles, where I'll be playing through and chatting about the game from a live perspective, which will give you a different angle on the game than these reviews do. So if you're interested in seeing more, then check out that video linked in the description. But first, let's go over the ultra-wide support. So 21:9 wise, things are very positive. Native support means that gameplay correctly shows off more on the sides of the screen in first and third person, and there is a relatively robust FOV slider to help you reach that perfect perspective. However, I believe it should be able to go slightly higher in first person. The HUD scales to the sides of the screen correctly, and so do screen effects, which, whilst stretching to use the entire screen space, still look decent. That said, the bleeding effect actually doesn't seem to be stretched. It actually looks perfect at 21:9, unlike the other screen effects, so that's a lovely point, as that effect is the primary one you'll be seeing on screen. The others are far more infrequent. In-game menus lock the menu elements to the center of the screen correctly and just stretch the background image to fill the screen, which I prefer over black bars, and this applies similarly to the main menu. It's a shame the background image stretches as such, because the menus would be perfect otherwise. Cutscenes are both 16:9 with black bars, but there are like 2 cutscenes in the entire game, and the map uses the entire screen space perfectly. Finally, loading screens are stretched nicely to fill the screen space, avoiding those black bars. Performance-wise, there are certainly issues, and this stems into why people have been negatively reviewing this game. However, at this point in time, things aren't terrible. They may well have been before, but they are not horrendous now. A little fiddly and cumbersome at times, but you can work with it. So I would generally stay about 60 FPS on average on highest possible settings at 3440 by 1440 on a GTX 1080 Ti, which isn't amazing. I would certainly drop below 60 if there was a big open area on screen, not drastically, but still into the low 50s, and the game is very good looking, so I can understand a lot of the performance demand, but that said, it still needs a lot of optimization. There are lots of frame drops as things load, textures can take a while to stream in, and that's off an SSD. The biggest problem for me though is loading into the world. From the main menu, it can take bloody ages, like 4 minutes. Not good. I also experienced a few crashes, but luckily these were rare. On the whole, single player is fine. Multiplayer, however, is where you'll experience a lot of other issues, but I'm going to go into this in more depth later as it ties into the negativity surrounding this game. General PC-wise, all controls can be rebound, however there are a number of things the controller can't do that the keyboard and mouse can due to lack of buttons, though this can be overcome easily with the WideAsFcuk tool that I covered in a video recently, allowing you to put up to 260 buttons on your controller. That video I'll link in the description if you're interested. So, gameplay. This is a big game. There is a lot to do. There isn't an exact ending, well, at least not as of now. Instead, the idea is you have this massive, and it is a very large, open world to explore. It's full of little story bits that explain the history, why things are like they are, the experiences of a few people passing through it. It isn't exactly heavy on the storytelling, but regardless you get the idea of what is going on, what happened, and of course you keep pushing forward to try and find out why you have this bracelet stuck to your wrist. I haven't finished the game, so I don't know the reasoning behind it, but I can say I'm loving the lore to this place. It's mysterious, interesting, and it's grabbed my attention fully. So the map until just very recently used to be only the sandy deserty areas of the south, but with the Frozen North free expansion it's fleshed out the world considerably, essentially doubling the world's size, and this is important. I only started playing the game after the expansion released, and I know that without it I would have felt the world was too small. This huge extra landmass certainly held a key to my enjoyment here. It made the road ahead when I started seem huge, that I had a massive amount of stuff ahead of me, so yes, this certainly will have helped my opinions on things. Now, this world is also split into sort of biome sections. So you have the desert, the icy lands of the north, the forest wet kind of European lands below the icy areas, but you also have more water heavy sections, open plains like you imagine wildebeest roaming on in America, and this huge rotting red city. Each section of the map feels significantly different to every other section. I loved moving from one to another. The change of scenery and animals that you come across is wonderful. It gives the sense that you're traveling longer distances than you really are, though that said, you are still traveling big distances in this. Difficulty levels on the map are also split across these sections. As a general rule of thumb, the further north you go, the more difficult it gets. However, for example, the southeast side is easier than the southwest side. So yes, from a map design, I'm very happy. I'd love to see more expansions that continue to extend the world north. I love the idea of being able to keep pushing upwards, things getting more difficult and more story to unfold as you continue forward. So what can you do in this world? And the answer to that is a lot. You spawn in with nothing. You've created your character with what is a great character customization tool. You can change lots about your character, and yet I'm sure most people will end up playing as a hot girl with big boobs, but yeah, it has a robust ability to customize how you look. And yes, there is complete nudity if you like, however it can be toggled between full, half, or none depending on your preference. Anyway, once playing, it's about survival. You need to be able to protect yourself against the predators that fill this world, and to do this you can kind of do everything you can imagine. So the basics you need are to chop trees, mine rocks, pick up plant matter, keep yourself fed and watered, and these give you the early building blocks for very basic equipment. For example, sticks and rocks can be crafted to make a basic stone axe or pickaxe, and it kind of just branches out in a sensible fashion. So as you explore, you'll find more resources like coal, iron, and that allows you to make better equipment. With basic ingredients, you can then build things like carpenters' workshops, or tanneries, or presses, and these things allow you to alter the basic commodities you've collected. So heating up stone will give you bricks, putting fish in a press will create oil, heating up hides will give you leather, and such like. There is a lot of depth here, and you'll want to tab out and give Google a search for some things, as the game leaves you to work out a lot by yourself, which I like. There isn't any hand-holding really, not to a stupid, unhelpful, annoying degree, but instead a sensible, if you want to work this out you can, otherwise just Google for some help way. A few tips I would give you now though are things like if you need bark, you get it by using a pickaxe on a tree, which I suppose makes sense as the idea is you're using a rough method of cutting down a tree, so bark would be torn off the trunk. To get plant matter, you need to find bushes and hold E to basically pick at the bush, and that way you collect up plant fibers. And a very useful thing I ran into was because the game has this awesome feature of being able to climb anywhere, just approach a surface and go forward and jump, then you'll be able to climb up the surface as long as you have stamina. But the cool thing is that you can use this ability in reverse. So if you want to get down a slope or find yourself falling down one, face the cliff and as you fall, hit space. That way you'll slow yourself down by grabbing onto the wall. It's a very useful mechanic that has made descending damn easier. If you go to the pause menu, there is an option to remove your bracelet. Doing so will kill you and allow you to respawn if you want to. This is useful for those playing on normal difficulty, for example, where when you die, you respawn back at your bed and retain all your gear, which means you save yourself a long, arduous journey back the way you came. Lastly, if you craft something in the armory or carpentry workshop, normally you can't craft this in your inventory, but once you have the equipment, if you save the blueprint in your inventory, you can just remake the piece when it breaks without needing to return to the armory or whatever each time. A great time saver. Gathering resources is obviously a huge thing for this, as it is with any game of this kind, and the question is always, is it too laborious? Do you have to spend way too long gathering versus time spent with the results? And my honest answer is no, but it could be slightly better. The devs have pretty much found a lovely balance between making gathering necessary and not overdoing it, but at times, especially for things like leather and plant material, I think it could be improved. That said, with the leather, because I would run out of it and where my main base was located at this time, I would need to go out on expeditions across the world in order to find animals to kill for leather, this way getting a ton before returning home. So yes, I love the fact that I was driven from my home in hunting journeys, as that was cool to be driven to do that, but I feel the leather return from each animal should have been better. And this applies to a few other things as well. However, for things like coal, iron and stone, because you can upgrade to an iron tool, each hit returns more resources than a stone tool. This means that as you get more developed, mining can get faster, but there is no way currently that this transfers to gathering things like leather or plant matter. If there was a hunting knife or hoe for these jobs that returned higher resource counts, then I think that would sort the issue. Base building is very resource heavy too. Again, I would say just a little too heavy, but not too far off the mark. And I love the base building in this. It's easily one of the best versions of any game out there. You can create huge variations of buildings to suit your imagination. And with the Frozen North expansion, there are now more materials and different requirements to building in colder, wetter areas. You can build crazy things like elevators that go horizontally and vertically. You can build all kinds of decorations, rugs, chairs, tables, beds, the lot. You can also build building defenses to stop intruders coming and attacking your base. There is a ton of stuff to craft. No doubt this is a brilliant aspect to the gameplay. I do want to also point out that there is a big difficulty, and I suppose it's a good thing in a way as it makes things harder, but I advise pushing as far inland as possible when building your first base. Because I realized that after setting up my first base right at the beginning, not long after I wanted to set up way further inland, which then required recrafting all of my buildings, and of course carrying all your equipment is near impossible, so every time I wanted to progress inland I had to re-establish myself, and so I have a line of bases through the map, which is quite cool, but yeah, something to think about when building any base. And this brings me to my other point, that because the world is so large, you want a fast way to travel around it, but there is currently no other way to do that other than by foot, which is long. I think the best way around this would be just to make sprinting not require stamina, because that makes covering long distances a nightmare, with constant sprinting and then walking over and over. I have heard though that mounts are on the way, so hopefully we'll see that ability added soon, and it'll sort out this gripe. Combat, on the other hand, whilst good, needs some work. It feels like the roughest side to things right now. You have ranged and melee combat, but it can get a bit messy, a bit overly hack and slash, and enemies can be frustrating to face, especially ranged enemies who have infinite ammo and can fire like a machine gun. This wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for the fact that taking damage throws you backwards the exact same amount of distance you can move forward before they hit you again, which means you get stuck in an endless cycle of being unable to move as they repeatedly hit you whilst you try and deal with them. Now this does of course arguably push you to make use of the roll mechanic to dodge shots, but this again feels rough. Hitboxes are not great, you can swing and not hit an enemy even though it looks like you did. And all in all, whilst I still enjoyed the combat, with weapons and armor all being fantastic with lots of depth, the combat mechanics simply need improvement. The good thing, however, is there are a ton of enemy variations with lots of different types of animals, all of different difficulty levels, so the combat has so much potential. On character development, your leveling up is done with the usual XP. This is gained during exploration and killing animals and crafting stuff. But the big thing that helps you jump up levels is exploring and finding new locations. This really promotes you to go out of your way and out of your comfort zone to quickly level up, and leveling up is crucial as not only does it allow you to boost your stats like health and stamina, but also allows you to unlock new craftable items, higher levels giving you access to much better options. Without those higher level stuff, you'll be unable to face many enemy types. Now the big final point to talk about is the fact that this game is single player or local co-op or online multiplayer compatible, so you have a lot of ways to play this. Multiplayer allows for a load of you to be in the same world and can build and craft and fight together or against each other, and this works like any other game where progress etc. is bound to a server and you log on each time to access it. There are official servers you can join for both PvP and PvE matches. However, you can rent your own server to have control over server settings, and this is why I believe I have rather different opinions towards the game than those in the Steam forums, because there are a lot of technical issues with online play. People are having lag issues, connection problems, loss of server data and the like. Reading through the reviews, people are not complaining about the gameplay, but instead the technical issues surrounding the game, and I don't see this as fair. It is still in early access, so you have total upfront knowledge that things will potentially be very buggy or have other issues, so to complain about the technical issues is not a fair complaint in my book. Gameplay yes, but until the game officially launches, you can just not buy the game. You're going into this purchase with the full understanding that there will likely be technical limitations, and you're in a way beta testing their game. Anyway, that's just my opinion. Regardless, back on my point, single player does not have as many issues as multiplayer. There are, however, still some, and they are really just performance ones, those I mentioned at the start of the video. I ran into no gameplay issues beyond the occasional person being bugged into floating or something and unable to move, but otherwise, single player is a brilliant time. I do just hate the loading time that it takes to get into the game. That needs fixing. Co-op has promise. People will certainly love the ability to not pay for a whole server just to play with a friend. However, the one problem is the player tethering. The players must remain within a short distance of each other, 100 meters, otherwise the client will be teleported to the host player. This restricts things quite a lot, annoyingly. You have to do everything together, and I'd love, and see no reason why someone couldn't with a powerful enough PC, for there to be a full map co-op mode. Other points I don't like about the game right now: the torches go out when sprinting, leaving you in the dark, which is bloody frustrating, and some large towns and cities are nearly impossible to take alone. You need a big squad of people, which works great online, but yeah, means in single player you will struggle to conquer an area because enemies just respawn, which I really think needs to be reworked somehow. It takes away from the single player experience when it shouldn't need to. That said, as a tip, if you build a home where those enemies were, they should not respawn again. Finally, my last points that I want to just highlight. There is lovely music throughout, and actually the music helps, at least for me, lend the world a rather Egyptian vibe in the deserts. I feel like I'm sort of back in ancient Egypt, which I love. I also want to point out that the destruction in this game is gorgeous. The way rocks break up when smashed is lovely. There is also full Steam Workshop support for mods, which is another great addition to making the game perfect for your taste. Sandstorms can rage through the world, limiting visibility and damaging you slightly, and you need to find shelter to hide away from it all. Spiders and other animals can poison you, but the key danger to watch out for is corruption. This slowly eats away at your stamina and health, permanently lowering their values. The only way to remove corruption is to capture dancers and break them in the Wheel of Pain, and then have them dance for you, and this is difficult to achieve, leaving you a long time with lowered health and stamina, which doesn't make the game easier. There is also a temperature system throughout the land, with various spots being overly hot or cold, and so requiring you to wear the correct clothing, and sometimes just avoid areas outright, otherwise you'll die fast. And finally, I do wish that you could put more markers on the map. Currently it's only like 4 or 5 that you can place, and I would love it to be infinite, as I want to mark places to return to or bases of mine, etc. So yes, overall I recommend this game, even in its early access stage. There are problems, but in my experience with it, they are manageable, and I can only hope that they are fixed and things are only going to get better in time. I'm also going to give it a WAF score of 4. It's kind of like a 3.5, but overall it's got solid ultra-wide support, so you'll have a great time on your 21:9 screen. Anyway, I hope that gives you some information how the game runs at 21:9. Give this video a like if you found it helpful, and subscribe for future info. For any of the games at 21:9, head over to my channel, the WAF website. Hopefully I've covered it. If I haven't, then leave a comment down below and I'll try and cover it. And if you'd like to support the channel, the links to my Patreon page are in the description, and Amazon affiliate links are there too. See you later.